Now we go live. So we are. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to make sure that that's muted so I don't have to hear myself and have that feedback. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are just getting ourselves settled, waiting to see if anybody's inside the village community logging in. And then we can kind of jump right into it. Let's see here. All right, here I can monitor comments. I always make you jump through hoops, right? So, and because I am doing split screen, I have two monitors because my camera inside my computer is not working, so I have to use an external camera for right now. And then my mouse likes to figure out where we all are here. There it is. Now see, I can move it. I can move it so it's a little bit easier to see. I can see you guys. Hopefully I can see comments coming in. Those all my other windows that I don't need to be seeing. And I can move this back over here. All right. So if you log into your Women's Business Resource Community account, getbizsavvy.com/login, you'll be able to actually get to the Zoom and download the handout. So let me just put, the link is there, but it's the old link, so we're going to just delete that comment. It's the wrong link. All right, now I can edit it. All right, that should take you to the right link. All right, to be able to access the Zoom. If you want to choose to do the interactive version. So welcome, everybody. I'm Karen. For those of you that are new, we've had a few women join us in the last week. I'm excited. You know, because as most of you know, my intention with this Facebook group and the Women's Business Resource Community is to reach as many women as possible, to bring resources, support, community, a feeling of connection to every single small business woman owner that we can. And lofty goals, but it's important because I think our number one goal is to remove the financial barrier. And what I mean by that is when you go to access coaching, it can be financially devastating when you learn the cost, the investment it is to do private one-on-one coaching, especially for those that have gone through the hoops to get certified, like myself, to have the number of years of experience that they're bringing to the table, proven track records, right? They've invested time and money in their own training and education and their experience. And so the cost is relative. But not all of us, and I will include myself in that, when I first started out, especially, I couldn't financially afford to work with a coach one-on-one. And I know that's a really big roadblock for women, small business owners, especially if you're in the first 3 to 5 years. We are told coaching is really important, having a mentor, having all this support, but to be able to have the monetary means to be able to access that can be super challenging. And to be able to prioritize it above paying bills, above reinvesting it into your business, to your products, to the services, to your own education, right? You start to kind of put it on the back burner. And that's the goal with the Women's Business Resource Community, is really to remove that financial barrier. And we have those different levels. And one is that free level where you can just sign up for a free account and you can jump onto these live trainings every week. You can also access that monthly coaching, which actually happens tomorrow. We have our Biz 101 workshop for all of our free members inside the village. So it's just a great resource without any financial commitment, but you can do the commitment of time, which is the first priority in order to build a thriving business for yourself and to leave that legacy, which I think so many of us want to do. So really, and that comes back to what we're going to talk about today, because our messaging has to be on point. And there's previous trainings. You can go into the library to the replay vault, which all of these trainings are housed in afterwards. And you can access different messaging, different branding trainings in there that I've done. So today I wanted to focus on just that specific spot of messaging, just that on brand short piece, right? Like, how do we make sure that we are in a place that people actually can connect with us and hear our messaging? So over the next 30 minutes, we're really going to kind of cover what that one sharp line statement is, your 3 content pillars. And we're going to be looking at how you can create at least 15 post ideas that you can start posting this week. So I would love it if whoever's joining us, whether you're here on the replay, right? Just hashtag replay in the comments. If you're here live, let me know, say hello, wave a hand, post your favorite emoji, whatever. And in the chat, share with us in 5 words or less, who is it you help? Who is it that you help? And while we're doing that, I'm actually going to open up my workbook because we're going to kind of follow it along. And that's what we're going to be doing. Which is why I want to know in 5 words or less, because that's what we're going to start building off of, right? So basically, we're going to be doing your pillars, your three main pillars. So we know when we're talking about our messaging and we're talking about how we're sharing things. I'm watching Roxy. She's like, I don't know what she's doing. Big girl, go lay down. Yeah, there she goes. You see in the background. We know, we look at our posts and we look at our KPIs and the metrics, and sometimes we're like scratching our heads going like, what is this, right? Because we know that most posts, they don't underperform because we aren't available or our work isn't there, but because our message is trying to say too many things at once. And to be really honest, I get caught up in that. Like, I have to really get out of my own way and really kind of dive in and say, what am I doing? Which is why this was so apparent to me, because we're working on our 2026 marketing for the Women's Business Resource Community as we speak, and putting together our first quarter, content and what we're creating and things. So we want to really zone in and fix one thing today, that you say one thing clear to the right person and you're consistent. So when people do your profile visits, they see you, they see your content, they're going to click on your profile. You want people to be able to save your profile or reach out and send you a direct message, right? And then ultimately book some sort of contact with you, whether it be sending you a scheduling a session, or finding out when your next event is, or finding out how to purchase your products. So that's kind of what we're going to work through today. So the first step, right, is really understanding who we're talking to. So there's a couple of different things. So in the workbook, like the handout, the first step is that input, right? Who are we serving? And you're going to want to lay out, what is the niche? What are the traits? What are their characteristics? And then what method or vehicle do I use to reach these individuals? And then what are the 1 or 2 problems that they are feeling? And what are 3 specific outcomes they're looking for? So a couple of different patterns that you might consider thinking, right, are I help who get what specific outcome without their pain point by method A, B, or C. That's kind of pattern one, right? I help so-and-so get this outcome without experiencing this pain by doing this. Pattern B might be, I help who, right? Who, what's the outcome with method no pain? So an example of that, because that's kind of cryptic, unless you're actually looking at the pattern, is moms launching boutiques want steady sales with simple reels. So no tech overwhelm, right? Because simple reels is, kind of like an oxymoron, I think, to some of us, because we're going simple. How do you really make a reel simply? Unless you're doing it full time, right? And you have the pattern there. So pattern C that we'd be looking at, right? A third version of what we're saying for the one-liners, right, is what's the role for what person? Who wants what outcome in what time frame? So an example of that is a website strategist for busy makers, right? Busy content makers who want 24/7 sales in 90 days. Lofty, but possible. We know that's possible, right? So the three examples that you're looking at when you're thinking of those one-liners, right? Those formulas. I help who get what specific outcome without pain by what method? So I help new coaches book 3 paid clients without ads by simplifying DMs. Pattern B is who, with what outcome, with what method, no pain. So the example is moms launching boutiques, steady sales with simple reels, no tech overwhelm. And then the third pattern is that role for who want what outcome in what time frame. So the example was website strategists for busy content makers who want 24 sales in 90 days. So that's the one-liner formula that we're looking at, helping you create. And one of the things you have to be aware of, and this is where grammar, we could go back to primary school or elementary school, right? And we have to notice what we want to notice, what verbs, aka action words, and numbers that specifically paint a picture for people to be able to look and say, yes, that's something I need. That's something I want. That's a product I want to purchase. That's a service I need, right? So I don't know what's going on with my voice. It's very raspy this morning. Okay, so that requires knowing your inputs, and that's that first page in the handout. So if we move on, right? So the second step is then you need to start drafting your version. So you take those patterns, and in the handout, it actually gives you the pattern. So pattern A and pattern B that we spoke about to help you walk through your drafts. But it's really important that you are, I'm going to look to make sure, I'm just going to check comments here, that you're thinking about that, and that in the important piece is that niche, right? Understanding who you're talking to and what their pain points are. So doing that first page of the handout is going to be super important for you to be able to really get clear, so you can be concise and you can keep refining based on the information that you've just laid out. So that way, when you start creating those one-liners, you have the information to insert into the blanks that are there. All right, so because we're going to move fast, just so you know, because we're already at almost like 20 minutes, but we'll go over if we have to. That's not a problem. Okay, so on your own, and if you're in Facebook, because I can actually see comments now, you are able to post comments. I'll be able to see them now as well. So, or if you're in the Zoom, let me know, and you can post in there under the comments, right? What version are you going to work on? You're going to pick one, And don't take like 30 minutes to write out your drafts. Part of this is that intuitive element. You know your product or service, you know your clientele better than you think you do. Some of our challenges is getting it from here to here and being able to write it down. So allowing yourself to set a timer for 2 minutes and just say, okay, this is it. I'm gonna answer this, because then you're able to kind of go back and you can refine it. If you take too long creating the initial drafts, you're going to overwhelm yourself. You're going to be like, you're going to overthink. You're not going to lean into trusting what you know about you and your product or service and your market. So when we talk about holistic, when we talk about really making sure we're in alignment, this is one element of it, of being able to say, I know myself well, I'm going to trust my intuition. I'm going to trust exactly what I need to say when I need to say it. That doesn't mean you don't get to do the work. You have to still do the work, right? You still have to go through the exercises that we're laying out today, so you can come back and say, yeah, I was right. Hey, this worked. I was really connected. I was really in my space, right? So, all right. When, be quick, you want it to be quick. So you're going to create a couple of drafts. And then we always are wordy. Do you find that? I know I find that. I end up having this like situation where I'm like going, oh shit, like I could have said that in half the words. I'm very wordy. I want to talk a lot, right? That's what I think. And when we're excited, we're passionate about what we do, we want to share. We want to just kind of, we get that verbal diarrhea going, and we need to kind of scale it back. So once you get your drafts done, the next step is to really tighten it down. And that's where you're going, there's 3 steps to this when we want to tighten our one-liner down. The first step is you want to cut at least 3 words. You don't want to have like a 40-word statement. If we think SEO, when we're creating content for our website, right? Our paragraphs can't be more than, I think what it is, I think 10 sentences, and each sentence shouldn't have, based on SEO practices, more than 20 words. So if your statement, if your one-liner is more than 20 words, it's way too long. You need to cut it back. And then once you get it to 20 words, you still want to cut 3 words. You want to try and really get it down to less than 15 words, because why? You want to be concise. You want to be clear and concise. If it's too wordy, people have to go to their heads and overthink, and you don't want them to. You want them to respond, right? So cut 3 words. That's the first step. No matter the length, 1, get it down to 20 words, then cut 3 words. The second is you want to eliminate any vague words, because again, we're all about clarity and being concise. And if you're using things that are vague, people get confused. So you want to make sure that you want to remove those and replace them with specifics. Okay. That's the second step when we're looking at tightening our statement, our one-liner. And then you want to hone in, what is your strongest verb? What is your strongest action item in that one-liner? And you want to identify it. So in the handout, page 5 is that third step where we're tightening. You're going to list in each of your statements, what is the strongest verb? Because you want to make sure that verb is something that you're using over and over and over again, from consistency, so people get it and they start hearing it, and it's easy to recall, because we want that memory recall, right? All right. The next step, once we get that one-liner done, we've tightened it, and we've identified, what our clear action is in each of our statements, the next thing is we need peer feedback. And I think this is a step that a lot of us, and when I say us, I am including myself, because when we're solopreneurs, when we work on our own, yes, we might have a few team members, but the chances are we work on our own, that we are then saying, well, who do we bounce ideas off of? How do we get feedback? How do we brainstorm effectively? Right? So peer feedback is normally the step that we always miss, which is another reason why between the Facebook group and the town square inside the women's business resource community, that those groups are there for that, where you can ask for peer feedback. If you're working on this, one of your action items when we are done for your next steps is to actually lean into the town square inside the village and the Facebook group, and under this training, post your statements for us to give you feedback. You can't excel and you can't improve if you don't have feedback, if you don't know if it's hitting or missing, right? So that's the one thing. So when you get peer feedback, some of the questions you want to be able to answer. So if I'm reviewing it or somebody else is reviewing mine, et cetera, some of the questions we really want to have answered in our statement is, what do I think that she sells? If I'm looking at yours and I'm saying, what is she selling? Do I know what you're selling? Is it clear? Is there a numeric benefit? And then identify what words we can actually cut. So if I'm reviewing it, I'd be like, going, okay, this is what they sell. This is the numeric value, right? The benefit. And then these are the words I think were fluff, that maybe were vague or didn't add any support to the statement and maybe detracted from it. So once you do that, right? Once you get that feedback, then you're able to say, okay, perfect. Now I know what I need to change. Now I know where I missed, or now I know what was hitting. Okay. So, because the key is really for us to be more concise with our words. The English language has thousands of words, and we only use a small gamut of them. But when it comes to our marketing, our messaging, we have to know what 3 to 5 words hit with our audience so we can consistently use them over and over and over again, because it's what's going to draw them in and they're going to remember us, right? So when you have that line finished, you know exactly, you've got peer feedback. You want to be able to then translate that into your content. You want to be able to translate that into your bios. You think of social media, all have those small bios. How do you take that one-liner and fit it in and use it in all your bios? Because again, there's that consistency and it's going to hook them to come in, right? Okay, so with that, we really need to make sure that that clarity and consistency are the pillars behind what we're doing, right? It's what everything else in our branding for that content is going to stand on. Because when we are clear with our content pillars, we can be consistent without always having to repeat ourselves. So let's kind of work now. Let's take the next 3 to 5 minutes, and we're going to just focus on the pillars of your messaging, because it's from here that you can then take it and expand on it. So you aren't having to use the exact same phrase. Because remember, being consistent doesn't mean you have to use the exact same phrase over and over and over and over again. It's how do you say the exact same thing, but differently. So when you get that one-liner, yes, we want to use it in our bio. Yes, we want to use it in our content. Yes, we want to use it on our website, etc. But we also want to be able to say the exact same thing without using the exact same words, except for those main verbs. right? Those 1 or 2 words in our statement, but we're not having to regurgitate the whole statement over and over and over again. So there's 3 things that we're going to start with when we're talking about our 3-pillar, right? So page 7 in the handout is that 3-pillar plan where we're going to come up with those 15 ideas. But where we start is we need to choose the pillars first. So we understand that we have to get potential clients and customers to go through that know, like, and trust phase. With our content, and we're building our pillars of content, we need to understand we're going to be doing, right, a few things. People will say you need to educate, you need to, so we're educating, we're teaching, and we're entertaining. So for the pillars, the 3 things we're going to work on for building that are, we're going to teach. So how to, tips, what are the frameworks, what are your templates, trust, screenshots. Is there things like testimonials before and afters or mini cases that you can share, right, to build that trust? And then tell. So the values, the founder's point of view, behind the scenes, unpopular opinions, right? So to work through that, a few examples might sound like this. So as a coach, teach, we're offering clarity. Trusting, we're going to share client wins. Telling why our method works, right? As a product maker, so if you're making shirts or if you're making ceramic, whatever that might look like, right? You're going to teach, which means care use tips of your product. User-generated content to build trust for reviews. And the tell section is about the studio life. You're going to share how, like, behind the scenes of how you do what you do to make the products that you make. So a local service. So if you're geographically limited for your products and services to where you are, then your teaching is going to be about seasonal tips. The trust is before and after. Telling is going to be something about the team and the community that you are located in, to bring it home, to make that connection, right? So with your 3 pillars, right, we want to know, to be able to write your 3 pillars, could you create 50 posts under each of your 3 pillars in the next year? Because that's what our goal is. Remember, we want to be consistent. We want to maintain the consistency of the main verbs, right? The main actions, but we want to be able to say it differently and still on brand, right? So that's the first thing you're going to choose, right? What are you going to teach? What are you going to trust, right? How are you going to build that trust? And then what are you going to tell? Those are the 3 pillars. So on page 7, it actually shows you, it has a place for you to put those 3 pillars in. And then there's 3 idea prompts for you to be able to fill in that handout as well, right? Where you're going to walk through the teach, right? You're going to walk through the trust, and you're going to walk through the tell. And then the next piece is you're going to brainstorm. Like words, content, 5 for each of those 3 pillars. So what does that look and sound like? And inside the workbook, there is space for you able to write those in. So I'm not gonna set a timer. I'm not gonna test you if you can do it in less than 5 minutes or not. But what you want to do, again, rolling back to what I was saying at the beginning, you want to kind of set yourself a timer, because again, this is about intuitively trusting, you knowing your product and service, you knowing yourself well enough, you know your business well enough that you're not going to take 30 or 40 minutes to come up and brainstorm and write down what those words are for each of your prompts, right? So again, trust yourself. Set a timer for 5 minutes when you're doing this part of the exercise and write them out. Don't second guess, don't erase, don't go back and change them, just write them out. You can review them later, right? So you don't want to have to worry about perfection when you do this exercise. I think we get caught up in, how we're saying things or what we're saying when we're trying to brainstorm. And the whole idea of brainstorming is like very similar to brain dumping. If you do any type of journaling, and we talked about this in the Facebook group yesterday as the question of the day, right? About journaling. Free flow journaling is you're just writing. You're not thinking, you're not answering a question, you're just writing. But the key with that is you're not going back and correcting what you're writing. You're not doing grammar checks. You're not doing spell checks. You're not doing, oh, did I put it in a proper sentence? Did I do punctuation? The whole idea with brainstorming is the same. This is like a free flow. You're not correcting. Messy beats missy. So you want to be able to write those 15 pieces, 5 per pillar, in that 5-minute period. And don't worry about what it looks like or spelling or anything else, right? So again, with this, I would love it for you guys under this post, especially in the Facebook group, to come back and post what your 3 pillars are and what your brainstorming ideas are. Because the other idea is when we share that, not only do we get feedback, and that allows us to gain clarity, but we are inspiring other members as well. We're sharing the information and people can receive inspiration to say, oh, I never thought of that word, or I never thought of that phrase. I never thought of it saying it that way, right? So we get to step into our teacher mode. When we share, we are actually ultimately teaching others, just like we are learning from others, right? So that is basically what we're looking at when we are looking at building and finding clarity and really taking our messaging from that, did we hit it or not, to like really being a magnet, is you want to be able to go through and understand who you're speaking to, how you're speaking to them, what their pain points are, what problems they feel, and really getting that statement down. Because when we're clear with that statement, it allows us to be clear, not just in our messaging and our branding and how we're sharing in the content we're building, but it allows us to be clear about our mission and our vision. And so the last thing that I'm going to just cover, and it's actually not in the handout, and it's not even in my notes, because I always have notes that I kind of follow to make sure I stay on track, especially since I'm wanting to try and get these done in less than 40 minutes to make sure we stay within a lunch period, is it's okay to change. We grow as individuals. We transition. Our business follows that ebb and flow of who we are as individuals, who we are as people, as mothers, as daughters, as sisters, right? As best friends, as spouses. We grow, we transition, which means, guess what? Our business transitions. And we have to be okay with coming back and revisiting this information on a regular basis. Because I'm going to tell you, I'm doing that right now. In the last 6 months, we as a family, my family and I, we have gone through some major transitions, like major, major transitions. And they're beautiful. And I've loved all of it. But man, has it been overwhelming? Has it redefined me? It's given me opportunity to realize what I've been missing in my own practice and inside the village, inside this Facebook group, which is why it's been super quiet over the last 2 or 3 months, because I have been going inward and really redefining so much. And you'll start to see all that show up in the content. You're going to start to see it show up in the trainings, which is exactly what you see today, right? Like I have a handout now for every single one of our trainings that we're going to be doing every Tuesday for these lunch and learns, because it's important for you guys to have the resources. Again, I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I keep saying I want to give you resources, and the library is full of them, almost 300 resources. But these trainings have always been a little bit haphazard, and they've followed some sort of outline, but they've never really been concrete. And I really wanted to give you all more of a concrete, hands-on experience with these lunch and learns, and which is why I'm creating handouts for each and every one of them. And these handouts will be inside the library. So as neighbors and as private clients, you have access to them, you don't attend the training. So they're going to be there for you guys to be able to get a hold of if you would like them. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about the changes that are coming. I'm excited about the language. I'm excited about really getting back into who I am and where I started 20 years ago, which is that mind, body, spirit, and really doing that integrated approach, which you're going to start to see that in everything that I do, a lot more apparent than just saying it's not behind the scenes anymore. It's really going to be in the forefront. There's a lot going on in the world right now as well. And I just need to acknowledge that. One, it's Veterans Day, so my heartfelt gratitude to our veterans here in the US and Canada. It's Remembrance Day, so my Canadian fellow vets, thank you for your service. Thank you for what you have given. Thank you. It doesn't come cheap, and I recognize that. So my husband is a vet. He did 10 years in the military. We weren't together then. It was before we got married. But I am still grateful because I can only imagine what spouses in the military and families go through. So thank you to our vets. And yeah, so I'm excited. So in the comments inside the Facebook group, if you're watching the replay, let me know. And then share your one-liner. And if you are so inclined, share what brainstorming you did for your pillars, for your content. All right. I appreciate you all. This will be posted in the next 24 hours inside the replay vault. I'll pin it to the top of the Facebook group as well for you guys to watch the replay. Facebook removes them after 30 days, which is why we post them inside the replay vault so they live on forever. If you have any questions, reach out, shoot me a direct message. They're always open. I'm here to support you guys. And if you have topics and ideas, let me know. I am going to try and find, hi, where'd she go? She's got her soccer ball. You hear? She's saying it's enough now, Mama. Time to come up. I know, I'm just going to share. I know I have the topic for next week because we're going to build on these again every week. We've got the next 6 weeks laid out. I'm trying to find it because I went from working on one to the other. There it is. Next week, we're going to be talking about visibility, right? So we're going to create a 14-day plan for you guys about improving your visibility within social media. So thank you again. I can't wait to read everybody's statements and find out what you learned. All right. You guys have a beautiful day. Remember, tomorrow is the Biz 101. So log into your Women's Business Resource account and join us for the noon Business 101 coaching strategy session. Bring your questions and we'll get to work. All right, you guys, have a beautiful day. Thanks for being here. We'll see you all next week. Oh, and another reminder, neighbors, your next coaching strategy is Thursday at 11 a.m. All right, you guys, have a great day. Talk to you soon.